Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my segment, The Word with Wiggy. Anyway, it's Black History Month, y'all. It's Black History Month. Look at my shirt. It says I'm black mixed with black. Because it's true. Anyway, so today we are going to be talking about
Found a savior. He's all I need.
but our first topic is going to be the Slave Bible, also called its actual name. The actual name of the Slave Bible is Parts of the Holy Bible selected for the use of the Negro slaves in the British West India Islands. That's the actual name. So, if you are a Black Christian, we're all brothers and sisters in Christ. But if you're Black and you have family, friends, or you run into people who are not Christian, a lot of the times they will talk about how Christianity is a white man's religion, or how Christianity was forced on our ancestors by slave owners and that it was used to control us, which is like partly true, actually. It's actually partly true. So, um, the Bible, or at least the slave Bible, was used as a weapon to people who were enslaved, and but they did not use the whole thing. So the Bible is 66 books, I believe, and not every book of the Bible is in the slave Bible, and not even the whole book of each, like the books that they have in there are not the whole thing. So if you think about the Bible, actually the Bible is a library of books. It's a collection of books. It's not one book. The Bible is not a book in itself. The Bible is, I believe, it's 66 books put together. But what's wonderful about the Bible is they all the books flow together. All the books are connected. All the books are telling the same story, but not the same story. And understand? So yes, you can teach one book on its own, but without the rest, how will you really, like, the point of it is the gospel, right? The point of it is Jesus. So if you exclude certain books out of um what you're doing, then it's not right. A little background on the slave Bible in general. Where did it come from? Who wrote it? What's going on? So it's not clear who decided that they were gonna omit certain passages and what to include and what not to include. But what what did prompt this, I believe, is so the first slave Bible, it was published in 1807. This is 3 years after the Haitian Revolution. A little background: the Haitian Revolution was the only slave revolt where enslaved people successfully drove out their European oppressors to form a new nation. So when this happened, when the Haitian people fought for their rights, and they made it happen, this made other areas that owned slaves very nervous. you know it made them think, how can we control rebellions? How can we control revolts? How can we really drive home, how can we make better slaves, basically? Because in their mind, the more obedient a slave is, the better a slave is. If a slave just does what we say, then that is what it is. So there's still a copy of the slave Bible, or as I said, it's called the Parts of the Holy Bible selected for the use of the Negro slaves. It is still in. There's a museum of the Bible in Washington D.C. and two other copies somewhere. I don't know where, but the motivation for these books, or these so quote unquote Bibles, quote unquote slave Bibles, was to highlight the portions of the Bible where people were displaying obedience, or where God was talking about being obedient, or where pastors of the Bible were talking to slaves about being obedient. And then you're like, well, that just points to it right there. The Bible condones slavery, which is like, it's true, but it's not true. Because what happens is, what God does for people, especially culturally, is there are things that are allowed. Just because things are allowed doesn't mean that they're approved of. You know what I'm saying? Um, because yeah, it doesn't mean that they're approved of. And then the type of slavery that was happening in the Bible, there are instances actually where there were like forced servitude. There are instances of this. I actually just read about it in I don't know, it's either Kings or Chronicles, when Solomon was building the temple, and he actually enslaved other tribes like the Jebusites and Amorites, Edomites, those type of people. But this is a little bit of the difference in the type of slavery that was going on there than that was going on with African Americans. So their slavery was like, you make your enemies, like enemies of war, are your slaves, when it's like that type of force thing. When it's not force, it's more like indentured servitude. People owe you money. um they might sell themselves to you as a slave. But like, even if we're going like Leviticus type stuff, right? Or is it Leviticus or Deuteronomy, one of those books, where people were enslaved, there was supposed to be like, there was like a year of jubilee. So like every 7 years you had to free your slaves, right? You can bet your bottom dollar that that part is not in the slave Bible. American slavery is much different. American slavery is like, literally, we kidnapped you, and then we forced you to work, and then we took your whole culture, your whole life away. Like, that doesn't exist in the Bible. Like, that type of thing, I have not read it yet. I've only read through the Bible one time, one good time. I'm on my second time, but I haven't not run into any example of American enslavement of African people. So yeah, they wanted some good slaves. They wanted some good obedient slaves. The slave Bible. We're gonna get into it, man. We're just gonna break it down real quick. The slave Bible omits most of the Old Testament, and about half of the New Testament. So that's not much left. And that's just horrible. When I think about it, when I really think about it, it makes me so sad, because I really love the Bible. Like, when I read the Bible, I was led to read the Bible in May of 2020. And it was so life changing that it hurts my heart that my ancestors were taught something that was just not right. And just not the whole picture, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you I could take any book and give you just snippets, and if you think that's the whole book, you will not have an understanding of the book. You know what I'm saying? So, um, oh, and then side note, abolitionists of that day, and if you don't know what an abolitionist is, abolitionists were groups, were people who were against slavery, and these are white people, black people. They were against slavery, and most abolitionists, I want to say, the abolitionist movement is actually a Christian movement. I just learned that, because people who were actually Christian, who actually want to follow Jesus, were like, I think Jesus said that, like, there is no, what is the passage? Oh, it's like there's no slave, like everybody's equal. So if you really read the New Testament and you understand that everybody's equal, and then you have slaves, it doesn't make any sense to you. Abolitionists, the scriptures they would use to speak against slavery, none of those type of scriptures were found in the slave Bible. So let's talk about what's actually in the slave Bible. Well, no, actually, let's talk about what's left out first, because that's what's in my notes first. The books that are completely left out, 0 of 0 books is in the slave Bible, or the holy scriptures for the Negro or whatever they called it. Leviticus, not in there. Numbers, done. No Joshua, no Judges, no Ruth. Second Samuel is not in there. Second Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, Psalms. Now you know that's some messed up stuff. You don't even leave Psalms in there. You don't even leave me something to be uplifted. Like, if y'all really read the Psalms, it will bless your life. Just read a Psalm every day. Read a few. It will really bless your life. It will make you understand how, like, it's okay to have emotions. It's okay to ask God, like, what's going on. Like, and you don't give them a psalm. And what's even more awesome about that is that they did not have any psalms to read, but it's like God was probably still talking to them some kind of way, because you think about like Negro spirituals and the songs they would sing in the fields and together in their slave quarters, they still somehow found ways to uplift themselves. Imagine if they had the Psalms. Oh my goodness. Song of Solomon's not in the slave Bible. Jeremiah, done. Lamentations, nope. They didn't want That's another one they really left that out because you know, lamenting is not complaining, but you're expressing yourself. Ezekiel's not in there. Amos is not in there, of course. If you haven't read the book of Amos, Amos is all about justice. So they left that out. Um, Obadiah is not in there. Jonah is not in there. That's kind of interesting. I wonder why. Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah. Is it Haggai? If I pronounce things wrong, y'all just let me know. Zechariah, Malachi, Mark. Why leave out Mark? What's wrong with the Gospel of Mark? I don't know. Colossians, Second Thessalonians, Philemon. This one is interesting. It is, but it isn't. Okay, Philemon, a little backstory on Philemon. The book of Philemon, or it's a letter, basically, is where Paul is writing to a slave owner. Oh, yeah, that's why they would leave it out. Philemon is a slave, right? No, no. Is Philemon the slave owner or the slave? Leave a comment and tell me. Um, but in this letter, Paul is writing to the slave owner to accept his slave back that has run away, but to accept him as a brother, not a slave. So yeah, that's why they left that out. Second Peter, Second John, Third John, Jude, and the book of Revelation is not in the slave Bible. Um, and I'm thinking Revelation is not in the slave Bible because it talks about new heaven, new earth. It talks about how, there's a lot of judgment laid out in Revelation on people who do evil things. So, you know, I mean, if you're a white slave owner, you do not want them, you do not want your enslaved captives to know that, because you want to keep them captive because you're evil. So what's left in the slave Bible? Let's talk about it. Um, Genesis is in there, but only 14 of 50 chapters is in there. I did read that a lot of times slave owners or slave chaplains or whatever they used to have back then, like because they would have people, missionaries and stuff, come and talk to the slaves. They would talk about the story of Joseph because Joseph was enslaved, but they would talk about it as how Joseph accepted what happened to him. He accepted his position, he accepted his circumstances, and he thrived in spite of it. But that doesn't even make any sense to tell that story that way, because, of course, he accepted his position and he accepted what was going on. But Joseph ended up excelling to like one of the highest positions in Egypt. And there was no excelling to higher positions in slavery. I mean, maybe a little bit, maybe we always see those movies where there's like that one slave that is trying to get on the master's good side and doing things, but like how high a position is that? Like you're not ruling anything. Your ideas aren't like that's just false hope to teach the story of Joseph in that way. Of course, the book of Exodus, there's only 2 of the 40 chapters from Exodus in the slave Bible. For sure, they omit the story of Moses telling Pharaoh to free the people of Israel from slavery. That part is not is not in the slave Bible. That would be a key point. That's like the key point of Exodus is that the Israelites are enslaved in Egypt and they cry out to the Lord. And after their time of slavery is done, according to God, he sends Moses to free the people. So, not a thing that I guess the slave owners of that day wanted the people to know. So after that, Deuteronomy is left is in there. 8 of 34 chapters though. First Samuel is in there. 2 of 31 chapters. First Kings 5 of 22 chapters. Second Kings 2 of 25 chapters. First Chronicles 1 of 29 chapters. Job 6 of 42 chapters. I'm surprised they left any of Job in. And I'm guessing, and I don't have all the details of what's in and what's not. I think I can find it though online. But um the only parts I'm thinking they left of Job is probably the scene in heaven, probably where God and Satan are talking about, you know, Job and what's gonna happen to him kind of. And so maybe they kind of twisted it almost like they did with Joseph, like, oh, sometimes bad things happen to good people, and this is your bad thing, slave. Sorry. Um, they left Proverbs. They gave him a little proverb, gave him a little wisdom. 24 of 31 chapters. Ecclesiastes. They left the whole book of Ecclesiastes, which that's interesting. I'm actually reading Ecclesiastes right now. Wonderful book. Uh, of Isaiah, they left 16 of 66. Daniel, they left 9 of 12. Hosea, 3 of 14. Joel, 2 of 3. Matthew, the whole thing. They gave them all of that. They said, and they gave all of Luke. So, as far as the Gospels, they say, you know what? Matthew and Luke, they're good. That's teaching them enough about Jesus, maybe to revere him in a way, but I'm not sure. John, they only left 6 of 21 chapters, which is very sad because John is like, I'm not gonna lie, John might be my favorite gospel account just because I love the way John writes. I do like the rest of them though, but John is like is really the one that drives home that Jesus is God. Um Acts, they leave the whole book of Acts, which that's cool. I love the book of Acts. Um Romans, only 2 chapters of 16 chapters, which makes me sad because if you ever read the book of Romans, that book is like fire. Like that book is like you will be motivated to go do something. You'll be like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Like it just puts the book of Romans puts stuff in perspective and you're just like, I can't even describe it. One day I gotta do a video on it. First Corinthians, they only left 5 of 16. Second Corinthians, 2 of 13. Galatians, 3 of 6 chapters. And they left out, for sure, in my research, they left out Galatians 3:28, which is the passage about like basically everybody being equal. So Galatians 3:28 is there is no Jew, no Greek, slave or free, male and female, since you are all one in Christ Jesus. That's not in the slave Bible. Cause you read that to a slave that says no slave or free, they're like, well, so what am I? What's happening? Ephesians, they only left 3 of 6 chapters. Philippians, 2 of 4. First Thessalonians, 2 of 5. First Timothy, 2 of 6. Second Timothy, 3 of 4. Titus, 2 of 3. Hebrews, 5 of 13. Great book. Sad that they didn't put the whole thing in there. James, 3 of 5. First Peter, they left the whole thing of First Peter. I don't know what's in First Peter. In First Peter, I don't know. No, I was thinking that it might be that one about slaves being obedient. It may be something in there, but I feel like Ephesians is where it talks about slaves being obedient to their masters, and they left a little bit of Ephesians as well. And First John, one of 5 chapters. So, with that being said, this is what we have to come away with this, and this is just a good thing for you to know, because an argument, um, an argument saying that Black people are only Christian because their ancestors were like duped into Christianity with the Bible. First of all, this is like a harmful message, and I'll tell you why. Because you are implying that Black people or enslaved Africans, or that you're implying that your ancestors were very dumb. And that just can't be true. I don't subscribe to this notion that my ancestors were so dumb and so meek and so afraid and so this and that they can't sense truth anywhere. That isn't that, like, y'all, do you and this is also this other notion that people in our ancestral times and historic times are dumber than us. Y'all think that y'all are so smart, that y'all are so much smarter than people from before. Why do you assume that you are so much more in touch with reality than our ancestors were? Now, am I saying that our ancestors didn't know, that our ancestors worshiped Jesus or worshiped Yahweh or worshiped the God of the Bible before they came to America? I don't know. I don't know that. It's possible that they did. It's possible that they didn't. People of many different cultures have practiced many different types of religions for many, many years since the beginning of time. You can look at the Bible and know that people left worshiping God all the time and started worshiping pagan gods. That's like a thing that has been going on forever. So there is no proof, or there is no way to know that just because your ancestors practiced voodoo or hoodoo or witchcraft, that they never practiced Christianity, and that anybody before them didn't know God, the creator of the universe. I mean, I'm going to make another video about this after I do some more research, but there were actual Christian nations in Africa in the first, second, third century before any of us, anything, all of that was even ever thought of. So to imply that Black people would only be Christian if white people told them about it makes no sense. Like, the Church of Ethiopia has been a Christian nation since the first century. And they have more books in their Bible than the 66 books of the Bible. They got more, okay? There are Ethiopians in the Bible. Like, you gotta open that thing up. There's Black people there. There's Black people in there. Y'all gotta, and it's impossible for Christianity to be a white man's religion if the Bible's not even about white people. The closest thing I could think of a white person in the Bible is the Romans, maybe. The very evil Romans, the Roman Empire, very bad. Very bad. Look into that one day. But like the actual like Hebrew people, like just going into, I don't know, the Old Testament, like, you do know, like, what area of the world that is. It's white people don't live there. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus wasn't white. Just because they gave you an image that he was white, like, y'all gotta wake up. Y'all understand. Y'all know that white people stole like everything else, but y'all don't think that they could have stolen Christianity. It's not even anything to steal, because Christianity is for everyone. It's for every nation, every tribe, every tongue, everybody, because it's for everybody. It's not just for one group of people. But it shouldn't surprise you that a group of people who colonize people and who do horrible things would take a such a wonderful book and chop it up to use for their, for their gain. Like, that shouldn't surprise you that people are evil. God been telling you that people are evil, and you don't believe him because it was God who said it. But if your spiritual healer tells you, you believe it, right? Right. But Anyway, that's basically all I have to say about that. Well, one more thing. Just because somebody says they're a Christian does not mean that they're a Christian. And I'm not here to judge people on their salvation because I don't have any salvation to give you. That's only for Jesus to do. But it's a big topic to say, oh well, Christians are, they've had the most bloodshed of all. They've caused the most wars. They've caused this and that. And I like to say those are people who call themselves Christians, and Christians are flawed. We're all flawed people. Christians just tend to know that we need our Savior, and that we need help. We don't have the arrogance to think that we don't need help, right? But a lot of people who claim the brand or the name of Christianity, but they go and do everything that's the opposite, like they're not actually Christians. And if they were actually Christians and they thought that the Bible was on their side and they thought that and they thought that slavery was like a thing that was allowed, they would have given them the whole Bible. But they knew better. They were being deceitful, which they were being sinful, and they will pay for that. It's Judgment comes for us all. Just know that there's freedom in Christ. And when you finally understand that, you everything will make um a lot of sense. Anyway, make sure you like the video, subscribe, share it, hit the notification bell so you always know when I upload. I will have some more topics coming. I want to do a little bit on the abolitionist movement and Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, who they called Moses, um, and some other stuff. But yeah, stay tuned, my friends. Stay tuned.